What's your name, boy?
Alias.
Alias what?
Alias anything you please.
What do we call you?
Alias.
Hell, just call him Alias.
That's what I'd do.
Alias it is.
Blood and Black Rum Podcast presents Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum Podcast. I'm Ryne from coldsploitation.com, and I'm joined by my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
And we are back with a Western film today.
Not a spaghetti Western.
Not a spaghetti. No. Technically, this is not. Even though it does look a lot like a spaghetti Western film, it is not a spaghetti Western film. Yeah. It's not Italian made. So, no spaghetti in it. But we had promised previously that we were going to do a Western. We did not uphold our promise a couple times that we did the episodes. But we definitely are doing a Western today.
Yeah.
And we're going back to our roots because I don't really think that we've done a Western since probably our first episode. Have we done a Western since we did Day of Anger?
No, we did not do Day of Anger.
No, I don't know why I keep thinking...
Pride, and Vengeance.
I don't know why I keep thinking it was Day of Anger. It's Man, Pride, and Vengeance, yeah.
Because Day of Anger is one we watched just for fun.
That's true, yeah.
Before we started the podcast.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that's kind of what got us...
got us looking into...
doing it and being titillated by the possibilities.
Yeah. So our first one was Man, Pride, and Vengeance. That's a spaghetti Western Italian film. This one is not, although it is one of the... I would say it's one of the more popular Western films of American culture.
I don't know about popular. I would say it has gotten praise as being a diamond in the rough.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a Sam Peckinpah film,
who is most famous for The Wild Bunch.
Yep.
Have you seen The Wild Bunch?
I have not.
I've seen it once, and it was quite a long time ago. I think I saw it. It was like on TCM.
Mm-hmm.
When they were doing like a Western.
And he's also famous for more than just Westerns too.
Yeah.
I mean, he did Stray Dogs, a pretty big film in the horror realm of cult films. And I think that he has a good track record of being able to do different things.
Yeah.
While drunk, as I am right now. So that's always a plus as well, that you can direct and make good films while being, as many people have said about Sam Peckinpah previously, including Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid's own Billy the Kid.
Well, it's hard to believe.
Kristofferson.
Let's say it's hard to believe that everyone else on set wasn't drunk, because if there was actual whiskey in the bottles they're drinking from, everyone on set should have been smashed.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, in Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid...
Hell, I would say, there's a scene where James Coburn, when he's in the bathtub with the ladies of distinguished character, that literally looked like it was just like the camera was accidentally rolling, like when he's like...
Yeah, and James Coburn was just like, yeah, whatever.
He's just drunk,
It's a fun time.
flicking a titty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, I mean, it has a lot of whiskey in it. And I will say from experience, it looks like authentic whiskey. It looks like authentic rye whiskey. It's very brown in color, and that looks like rye whiskey to me.
Yeah, like someone just home distilled.
Yeah, exactly. I will say that before we get into talking about the movie itself, watching Westerns like this really gets me drinking whiskey. It is drinking whiskey and chewing on a cigar. Really chewing on that cigar, because all of these films, if they share any one thing in common, besides the mesas of like New Mexico and things like that, it's that they're always sharing a unlabeled bottle of whiskey, and they've always got a not very thick, it's a nice little cigarillo style cigar. And it's very attractive to me. I can understand why they do those sort of like, now they have like those
instant R's for...
Well, yeah, instant R's and like the advertisements for like, don't don't have smoking in movies. It's like, well, in westerns, it was pretty attractive to smoke a cigar and drink some whiskey.
To be fair, just from media in general, they make vices like drinking and smoking look so cool. I mean, when you see Sean Connery for the first time in Dr. No, when he's doing his famous introduction of pulling out his very fine-looking cigarette case and pulling it out and tapping it, and he's like going to light it and like, who are you? And he's like, name's Bond. James Bond. It's like, oh yeah, that's like
pretty cool.
It's like Spike Spiegel and like Cowboy Bebop and like Lupin and them and like the anime. It's like, God, they make smoking look so fucking cool.
I know.
It's like the way they're like, oh yeah.
It's hard too because I've seen the entirely opposite end of the spectrum of how it's not so glamorous and cool to have been smoking for the rest of for your entire life.
Well, same here.
And it's hard, but
it's I know. Well, no, because it's like you understand it, but it's like you look at it like through the the veneer, and you're like, oh.
And also, when we're talking about Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, 1973, smoking wasn't really a thing that you would say like look down on, or you would say like, well, that's dangerous. At that time, it was really like push it.
Well, by that time, you couldn't advertise on TV.
That's true. Yeah, you couldn't advertise on TV,
which is still funny because I was actually the other day watching like a clip from like the 1950s, and it's from like some game show, and it was a guy, an old man who had almost 100 years old, was on the game show. They had to find out what secret he had, and the secret was he was there when Lincoln was shot by John Wilkes Booth. Mm-hmm. And on this game show, it's sponsored by Winston. All like the tables have Winston on it, and everyone there except this old man, like the host and like the people who are guessing the answers, are smoking cigarettes. Like, got ashtrays right there. Like, yes, what's this secret that you have here, sir? Oh, hey, have a Winston.
Did they like name drop it too? Were they like, oh, what are you smoking over there? Oh, Winston's, yeah.
No, they didn't, but you could tell just from like the advert.
They had infiltrated that show.
It was literally like you would see like when you're watching, excuse me, on TV like a baseball game, you see in like the background behind home plate like Pepsi.
All the advertisements. Yeah.
WB Mason. Yeah, no, it's Winston cigarettes.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, at least when you get into like westerns, they're unlabeled. There's no like Jack Daniel's label on this whiskey. There's no.
I don't think Jack Daniel's at that time would be getting shipped out of Tennessee all the way out to like New Mexico.
No, and that was the question I had for like not only Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, but other Western films and other shows that you watch, like Hell on Wheels as well. Like, it takes a lot from these Western style shows, especially American Western styles. With all of the whiskey drinking, and it's like, who was manufacturing this whiskey at that time? Like, when you watch these movies, like this one whiskey bottle to one person, where the fuck was all this whiskey coming from?
Somebody was making it.
I wish it was like that now. It's probably like $1 a whiskey bottle.
Well, that'd be expensive back.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
I did find it a nice little touch that there was one guy drinking beer from a glass.
That was nice. Yeah, I did notice that too.
Which would be was a rarity because that's why you see them always drinking whiskey, because whiskey's distilled, so you don't have to worry about it going bad. Beer, you can't. So especially during that time period, there's no cold transportation, so you're not gonna be able to have like Schlitz bring its beers.
That was interesting because he was enjoying a nice cold lager, and it was
I'm sure it wasn't cold. It's probably
it was like sawdust. Yeah, sawdust basically at the bottom, and
but yeah, no, that was great.
All right, let's take a break real quick. We are gonna diverge away from Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid for a second. Talk about the beer that we got on the show today. I've already had 3 glasses of whiskey,
tin
cup whiskey, which I had to have because I'm very influential based on what I'm watching. If I'm watching, let's say I'm watching a Hammer horror film, I'm going to be drinking red wine with that because that's what they're always drinking in, like goblet style red wine.
Why haven't we done a Hammer horror film yet?
We should at some point. We'll do one, but that's what I'm always drinking when I watch a Hammer horror film. Now, if I'm watching a Western film, I'm going to go right to my whiskey. And luckily I had a new one. So I went to Tin Cup. I had 3 tin cups full of whiskey.
Now, where is that distilled?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. I just received this tin cup for Easter, technically. My wife got it for me for Easter. I'd never had it before, but it is very good.
I've never heard of it.
Very smooth. It comes literally with a tin cup shot.
I didn't even bother trying it.
I know, because you just can't drink whiskey straight like that.
Not anymore, really, no.
I love it.
As much as I do like rye whiskey, I can tolerate more because I like the pepperiness. But like, I don't know. It's like I like it, but at the same time, it's such a like grimace and like the alcohol
like
burn.
Put up with it. I don't know. I
just can't do it.
It might
anymore.
be like I don't know, like a acquired taste. Like you continue to do it until you really get into it.
Well, I've had an experience with vodka one night that left me blowing out the blood vessels in both my eyes from throwing up so hard. So
to me,
I think alcohol, like liquor, like that, just that's why I'm like just a beer guy.
I find like straight whiskey, and even most like I'll have straight Kraken too. I find that very relaxing to me. So if I'm sitting down at night and I'm like watching TV and I'm getting ready for bed, I'll have the straight whiskey.
I was gonna say rum's that's one liquor. Rum's one liquor I can drink straight fine because it's just like such an easy, sweet.
Yeah, especially like a Kraken black rum is very easy to drink. It's very smooth and I'll sit down and just drink that while I'm watching TV or something. And that I'll tell you what, I don't need no Z NyQuil stuff. Just give me that and it puts me right out because I'll fall asleep within like 30 minutes of having that. Like if I finish it, I've had times where I've had a cup in my hand. I fall asleep. I wake up. I'm like, well, I still got a little bit in there. I'm going to finish this. I'll finish it and go to bed. And, no matter how much is in the glass. So
it's called alcohol, isn't it?
pretty much, yeah. But I shouldn't divulge my vices right on the podcast like that. Well, especially when anybody can work and just listen in, I guess. But
there's nothing against the law about being a drunk.
That's true.
If you're belligerent, then you got a problem.
I'm fine with it. But on the show today, I did get a special beer for us to try. We've talked about this brewery before because it is on the upper echelon of price range. Ballast Point is the brewery we're talking about. We don't get it that often, primarily because it's like fucking $18 for a 12-pack.
No, it's more than that.
Probably more than that.
It's $21.
Especially with the tax and bottle deposits and everything like that.
When I was at Price Chopper the other day, when I bought a 15-pack of Founder's Delicious PC Pills, which we've reviewed before on here.
15-pack, right?
Yep.
Yeah, way to do it.
Well, it's a bargain, too. It's only $16 for...
I do like the new tradition of doing 15-packs. That is one of my favorite...
Well, I wish they would just go to the 18.
Sure.
Go to 18.
I'm sure we'll see that in the future.
Like what's next? We're not going to do a 30-pack. We're going to do a 27. No. But no, I got that, but as I was looking around, I did see, I was just looking to see what beer was coming out, because I really haven't bought any craft beer for like couple of months. Just been drinking Miller Lite for the most part because it's just easy, refreshing, and been kind of bummed out like with the kind of trends with craft beer when it comes to like the specialties. Except there's two that's coming out soon, sometime this month, with one of our favorite brewers in Genesee, coming out with a cream ale sampler pack and a ruby red Kolsch, and I cannot wait for that. And when it does come out, trust us, it'll be on the podcast. But getting sidetracked. When I bought the Founder's PC Pills, I was just looking around, and they had a couple of ballast points, like their Session, one of their Sculpins, and another like variety on the Sculpin. And they had like a 6 and 12-pack, and it was $13 for the 6-pack and $21 for a 12-pack. That's acid. That's ridiculous.
And that's what it was for the 6-pack that I got today. $13 for the 6-pack. What we're drinking is their new Mango Session IPA. It's called the
Even Keel.
And it's a Mango Session IPA that's only 3.8%, which, especially if you're going to pay $13 for, is kind of a interesting idea. That you're going to charge $13 for a 4% IPA.
Yeah, you're going to pound...
Yeah, I mean, six beers at 4%, is really, you're not getting a whole lot for your money's worth. Because in general, like if you're going to buy a 6-pack or even like a 4-pack, you're expecting something to be a little bit like a heavy hitter.
Something that you're going to want to like just savor and enjoy.
Right. I think that even Keel is a little interesting, especially at its price point. I mean, Ballast Point in general, for us, is way overpriced. I don't understand the idea behind why they price their beer the way they do. It doesn't even seem to matter about exporting because,
from California.
Ours is from California. Obviously, it has to travel cross country, but I've talked to other people in different states, in Florida, same price there. It's very expensive, and I don't really understand the reasoning behind it. I think it just has to do with the name.
It's like the same thing with Stone. Like, I like Stone's beer. Even though all they really do is like IPAs to hell. But I like Stone's beer. I'll never buy it though, because I'm not spending $21 on a fucking 12-pack of beer. Sorry, right. I'm just not, there's no like I don't have or like. Because I know, like, Stone's really big about, like, we brew, like, special beer. It's, real beer. It's not fizzy piss water. It's like, well, good for you. I'm not paying $21. Sorry. I drink beer to relax and also enjoy it and enjoy the different varieties. I don't want to, like, be like, when I buy a pack of beer, whether it be 6 or a 12-pack, be like, well, I gotta make sure I enjoy every, It's like the same thing when I don't buy, like, Ben & Jerry's ice cream. I'm not spending $6 on a pint of ice cream. Love ice cream. I can't, bring myself to do it. Because it's like, you gotta, if I eat it in a city, I'm going to feel really extra sad. Because, But this isn't even that good.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit disappointed with the mango, even Keel. Obviously, it's a session IPA, so it's meant to be sessionable. It is light. However, I think that it has
very light.
It's
pretty
very light.
I mean, it is hoppy, but it's also pretty watery.
I think it has a strange aftertaste to it. In this case, I don't know if it's because of the canning process, but it does have a sort of a tinny,
metallic.
I would say like it. I would say like it's a tinny wheat taste because you do get that wheaty like sensation from it, but it's also that tin that has seeped into it. So I don't know if that's, just because of the canning process. Maybe we have an old can of this, which I don't believe that's true. But for whatever reason, it does have I would call it almost an unpleasant aftertaste. It's not something that
And the mango's very, very mild.
It is mild, yeah. I mean, I get it. I do taste the mango. It's not in the same sense where you have some of those orange-style IPAs that really get blended in with the citrus flavor of hops in general. The mango does come out in this, but I would say that I'm for the price range of what Ballast Point is generally considered to be, I'm unimpressed with this. I wouldn't go out of my way to get a Ballast Point even Keel just because of the namesake of it.
No, this has even pushed me further away from their brand of it being like I want to,
I think that Ballast Point does do some interesting things. They have their pineapple sculpin, which is pretty interesting. The habanero sculpin is very interesting, not for everybody.
I still have one of them.
Oh, you do? Really?
It sits in my pantry.
The habanero is definitely an experiment to try, but again, it's not for everybody, and it's not for like just regular like sitting down. I'm gonna have a habanero sculpin. It's hot. It's not. I wouldn't say it's pleasant. Like you're not gonna sit down and have a relaxing time with a habanero sculpin. It's more of like an experiment. Like I'd like to try this. I do like hot things sometimes. Let's put it in beer format. But yeah, you're right. Like you're a perfect example of, you have it sitting around still because you have to be in the right mindset, the right mood for it.
I'll never be in that right mindset and mood for it. So that's just,
You do have to push yourself through it and be like, let me try that habanero sculpin again. But I actually saw somebody who tried it just the other day and was like, not for me.
And I like spicy things too. It's just like, I guess when it comes to like
it's overwhelmingly spicy.
It's like when it comes to a beer, which we did review that for the podcast too.
We did do it.
I just like it's just like something I don't want. I don't want like to sit down and be like, I want to, after I eat, some tacos and enchiladas, I also want to have fire coming out of my ass from the beer I drink. No, please just give me like a nice Dos Equis with a lime.
I have had some good hot spicy beers. I've had some jalapeno stouts and things like that are interesting.
That's a little bit different because jalapenos not that spicy.
Yeah.
It's spicy. Like if you like spicy food, jalapenos aren't really that spicy. Especially if they're like mixed with something. Habanero's different though. It's Dad'd be like, "Hey, you want to try a ghost chili pepper stout?" Man, no, thank you.
Yeah. It's overwhelming. Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is probably, I would say, like the 5th or 6th unique Ballast Point beer that I've tried, and I just can't get over the price range of them in comparison to the quality of the beer. It just doesn't add up for me.
So not like that. Like I said, I just bought Founders PC Pils, a nice hoppy Pilsner. It's 5% alcohol. It's enjoyable, sessionable. $16 for a 15-pack. Founders makes great, goddamn, really good beer. It's great. We gotta try their premium lager that they have come out with too recently. And that's gonna be coming in 15 packs. Just gotta hope to find it around here.
Yeah.
Look forward to that too.
All right, let's get into Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. Really excited for this. It's one that I know that you've talked to me about Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid a lot previously.
I have.
You have recommended it. I had never seen it before now. I know this is one of your, go-to Western films. So why don't you explain the plot of the film?
Well, it's a simple, romanticized telling of the story of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, how they were friends, and how Pat Garrett is going to be, he's now been elected sheriff, and he's no longer an outlaw, and he's coming for Billy the Kid, who is still an outlaw. And that's all there is to it.
Yeah, it's a really simple premise, actually. One that I would say Sam Peckinpah attempts to flesh out throughout the film in small details, because this film is one that trades off between the two storylines. It trades off between, we see Billy the Kid in his ventures and pursuits and, escapes trying to get away from Pat Garrett. And then we see Pat Garrett on the other side of things as the sheriff trying to rein in Billy the Kid and try to figure out where he's gone. And we get like two sides of that story. So it's literally like how the title suggests, split between the two. That's actually, and the title suggests, from me, like coming in as a layman, not really knowing anything about Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, it almost sounds like they're together. They're riding together. They're both, running from the law or whatever they have going on. But in this case, they're really separated. If you think about some other films that have "and" in the title, they're together, and you kind of
Hooch and Turner.
Yeah, exactly. Or it's like it's like a buddy comedy almost. But in this case, what you expect is a buddy comedy, and you get the opposite of that, which is they're actually and really in the film's reality. At some point, Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett, they were together. And Billy the Kid's almost like a apprentice of what Pat Garrett used to be. So it's really interesting, morality-wise, that now those tables have kind of flipped on themselves. And you have Billy the Kid, who's really just an outlaw, and Pat Garrett, who's turned from outlaw to law enforcement.
And all they basically say in the beginning, too, when Pat, runs into Billy at Fort Sumner and tells them, hey, the governor wants you out of the territory. And he goes, "Are you asking or are you telling me?" And he goes, "I'm asking now, but in 5 days, I'm telling you, and I'm coming for you." And he goes, "Well, I never thought I'd see Pat Garrett become the lawman." And he goes, "I'm just on the," says, "I'm the same man I was before. I'm just on the right side of it now." So he's basically saying, I'm no different than you, and I haven't changed at all. But it's, it's this badge that's going to protect my ass.
And that also works as a threat, too. Because, as we find out throughout the film, they used to ride together. So Billy the Kid knows Pat Garrett's expertise, and he knows how good he is with a gun. And, that's all important within a Western film, is how good are you in a draw? and how good are, obviously all of those factors come into play. So it's also a threat in saying, like, we used to ride together and now I'm on the right side of the law and you are not. So, turn yourself in or I'm coming for you.
Well, he didn't say turn himself.
Yeah, basically.
He says go to Mexico.
Basically, make a run for it. But
which I will say that this isn't a new concept either in westerns. There's been several Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid films. It's one of the most probably popular and visited historical, because it is based on actual historical events in American history, and it's up there with probably, I would say the one more prevalent would be Tombstone with Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday and the OK Corral. Mm-hmm. That's been done a million times too, most famously in Tombstone. So they're not really breaking any new ground here. It's just, And
interestingly, too, Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, they also appeared in a movie 3 years previously, which was called Chisholm, which had John Wayne in it, and is effectively almost kind of a prequel to Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, in that it tells the story of Chisholm and how Chisholm, the cattle rancher, uses Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. And that comes up in play.
Well, it's an unintentional prequel.
Yeah, it is.
They're not associated, but
right.
That one's about the Lincoln County War, the ranch wars, which I haven't seen Chisholm, but that's what, that part's about. This takes place after the...
Yeah, and this effectively, I mean, it's kind of interesting, because I don't think that Sam Peckinpah really meant it to be, what would be considered like a sequel to Chisholm. But it does kind of work out that way, because there is a lot of references to Chisholm in this film, of the cattle ranchers, of the power that they hold over government. And that kind of comes up in Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid as sort of like a secondary plot point, but it doesn't really, become the main focus of the film. It's kind of interesting, though, how those two relate to each other, even though that's really not something that either film meant to do. But I think that the plot of Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid is simplistic enough that it works, and also sometimes a little bit, I would say, frustrating. I think that the frustration for me comes in with Pat Garrett's character, actually, who I think is really an interesting guy and played pretty well. But I think the frustration comes into the fact that his morality is sort of skewed for me. I don't know that I understand exactly why he does the things that he does in the film.
It's mainly just because he wants to secure his future and his wealth. He tells Billy in the beginning when he's sitting down having a drink with him, before he tells him I'm coming after you. He says, "Look, I plan to live to be old, which is funny because he's played by James Coburn, and this was already old."
Yeah, it's true.
He's like, "I plan to be old and gray." It's like, James, you're already old and gray, so that's not your fault. But he's like, "I plan to be old and gray and have a shit ton of money." Yeah, and that's why he's doing it. He's doing it because there's a bounty on Billy. He wants the money. He wants to make sure that he's got a future, basically. Because when you're an outlaw, you don't really have any future.
You're kind of just going with the flow.
It's day to day. Anything can happen to stop you from having life. I mean, granted, being a lawman too is also dangerous, because as you see throughout the film, people don't like the law.
Right.
The townsfolk, they don't like the law.
They don't trust them.
Yeah.
Really.
And they're constantly, everyone that Pat Garrett runs into, tells him, he's a coward and, he's a betrayer. Even his wife, says that he's becoming a no good gringo, and he's become dead inside because of, his just blind willingness to hunt down his friend just to try to get some money.
Yeah, I think that not confuses me, but I think what gets muddled in the proceedings is that in some ways he does have a sense of like morals and ethics to himself. Like he doesn't accept a bribe from the cattle ranchers, like the governmental, the wanted bounty that they're putting on Billy the Kid. So he doesn't accept the $500 that they want to offer him in order to bring him down. Actually bring him in, really. They don't want him dead. They want him brought into justice. But he doesn't accept that. But he also does seem to have sort of a interior moralistic attitude that he's got to bring Billy the Kid down, despite the fact that he was once in that same situation as how Billy is acting. You know, he rode with Billy. He was sort of a mentor to Billy. And so he was in that same place before. So I do find his actions a little frustrating, in that Sam Peckinpah doesn't really go into detail about that. But I guess that's also part of the compelling mystery of Pat Garrett at the surface level. We really don't see everything that he has going on underneath him that drives him to do what he does. And it's kind of like that mystery that keeps the film rolling as we go through all of this, as Pat Garrett, confronts a bunch of people that Billy the Kid knows and has been in contact with. It kind of drives the film forward. I think that's interesting.
I do appreciate his cold, deadpan, just like not delivery, because Coburn does have some quips and funny lines, but for the most part, just seeing how cold and calculating he is, and they're not they're not telling you, but they're just showing you like his him tracking him down and things that he's doing to track him down.
Yeah, I think the film gets a lot of mileage out of just him being like a very calculated and almost not, I don't want to say demented, but certainly someone who understands like the psyche of human emotion. So he kind of sits him down and it's almost like a torture device in itself.
But you can also tell too, though, that he kind of regrets what he does, because the opening is set years, like when Pat Garrett is shot down, killed, and the people that shoot and kill him berate him for killing Billy the Kid, and you can tell he's upset and pissed off about it, because he might possibly regret that. Right. I mean, that part to me has always been kind of just muddled, just because
the opening scene.
Yeah,
I agree. I actually thought we were watching like a clip of like something cut together, because it seems very disparate at the beginning of the film.
I mean, you can tell because it's cutting from present day till when of Pat Garrett's death, getting shot and killed, and cutting to Fort Sumner and seeing Billy the Kid and him about to begin the chase. But just the dialogue that goes on between there is kind of so what was the point of showing that? You couldn't, if it doesn't really make sense. If anything, it should have been showed at the end, after we see Pat at the end rocking in the chair, and after the guy basically comes to verify that Kid's dead and he rides off. They could have faded and then show him in his years of retirement. Do I regret it? I don't know. And then show that scene of him getting gunned down by,
Well, I agree with that too, that it would have worked better towards the end of the film. I will say, coming into this, not having seen it before, the ending was very, or I'm sorry, not the ending, the beginning was very, confusing to me as a watcher, just not knowing what was happening at all. As the film progresses, it does make sense. But I think it works better at the end of the film, because when we do see Pat Garrett finally gun down Billy the Kid, there is a lot of remorse there in that scene. It's a very quiet scene. Most of the time in this film, Bob Dylan's score, or at least some sort of instrumental, is playing in the background. In that scene, it's very quiet. And it almost plays out very somberly.
That too, and I can't remember his name.
His partner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Pace or Poe.
Poe, yeah. Poe.
Yeah, Poe, he says, after Garrett kills him and he's lying there, he says, I want, his trigger finger cut off and sent back to Lincoln, so it's posted. And as he's, going to do that, Garrett, wraps him upside the head with his revolver to make sure, that they don't desecrate his body. So, that shows,
Yeah, I definitely...
the turmoil that he kind of feels about what he's done.
That last scene is absolutely, it's really interesting how it plays out because, when you think about a Western film, you think about the film playing out at the end towards, some immense climax where come to terms with it. In this case, there is no crosswords, there is no climax. He has the opportunity, and he sits down on a bench outside of the house so that he can allow he's taking him down. Mm-hmm. It's a very somber moment. It's it on the surface a very serious purpose. He sits down. You can see actually, and it's I would say film. He's kind of I wouldn't say comical, but he does have his own sense of humor, but humorous. And in this part of the film, he really does not have any of that. There is that sort of inevitable sense that this has to happen. And if you think about some of the other spaghetti westerns that you see, there is this ridiculous face off at the end of the film. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, for instance.
Oh, that's great.
I'm not saying it's not great, but I'm saying really built up, almost exaggerated face off, wherein Pat Garrett and Billy, underwhelming. But still...
Well, the face-off isn't, but the build of Garrett, sneak through, the buildings, track him down and find, that's where the build-up in that standoff is as he's, going through the buildings looking, and as, Poe is looking, at Kid, but he can't bring himself to shoot him, as the other deputies, yelling at him, you're a coward for not, doing it. It's very, but that's all tense, and then when Billy finally turns around, he sees Garrett there, and he just plugs him.
Yep, it's
which again, that's another. As I will say too, another thing that actually kind of go against how you said you think Garrett's morals are twisted. He doesn't. You don't really get to hear expressed, but you get again. It's all visual because after he shoots Billy, he shoots the mirror.
Yep,
because it's his reflection. And I think that says a lot because he's
conflicted about
he's damn Billy, damn myself, damn us all.
Yep.
I think that's all really good. I think it's all.
I agree. I
think James Coburn's really good in this.
I think that's a really strong moment within the film. Some of my critiques of the film was that some of the scenes really seem, as you mentioned previously, some of the scenes where he goes to the prostitute, the terms of Western world,
Yule.
Yeah,
literally, it's as he's I was it's fine, kind of. I'm not saying I'm fine. The one prostitute, and he beats her, and is about ready to have sex. Then with the 6 other prostitutes break in, and then you got Dylan's la 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 la, taking James Coburn's clothes off. He's woo! It's just I think they're sitting in the bath, and he's just flicking the chick's tit. Yeah. Just flicking her titty, just woo, it's
I was thinking, he says, I will take Ruthie. I think her name was Ruthie Ann. Kind of keeps pressing on him. He's you want anybody else? And he's just as long as Ruthie is up 6 people. So obviously that's 6 times the price. If I was James, sorry, one's enough. That's all I can afford.
Well, he's got $500 coming his way.
That's true. That's true. Yeah,
it's It's almost it's the 70s now. Here's some boobies.
The film where they don't add a lot of range to what's actually maybe flesh out the character a little bit more. But
I think it's also too because it's the film's sense of time is kind of weird. It doesn't really say exactly, but it's supposed to be a couple of months.
That they have to ride horses. So in that sense, riding horses to Mexico,
even from New Mexico,
right? Exactly, even from New Mexico. So I understand that, but I guess I just don't really add up to the plot itself.
Well, I would say the main part of just Bob Dylan's character, Alias.
True. Bob Dylan. Yep.
Every scene he's in is just why I need to be here? Just Because
Well, a lot of it is random too, like his initial.
Randy Wurlitzer's screenplay was already written and done, and then when they were like, had to be like, oh shit, what the fuck do we do? So they just scribbled, but he's just like, it looks like he's like a blacksmith or something, like constantly flashing to him, just looking. Oh, who are you? He's like, Alias. Oh, what's your name? Alias name. Like between Kris Kristofferson as Billy the Kid and the guys that he runs, that whole moment of like kind of like seriousness and like the story that, and then Kristofferson's just like, I don't know who he is, but
there that isn't really like a main character that we haven't met that much. Like in some of the later scenes when
has Bob run off and read some canned labels, and he's just like plums, baked beans
in the later scenes. So they came up with something like that was kind of goofy to get him off screen.
Like, it's totally pointless.
It is, yeah. I mean, it adds some comedy to it because Bob Dylan, like a Jimmy Fallon sort of guy in this, where he's like, he
about to
can
break
never
out.
really...
Gotta get out of town.
Yeah. It's. I mean, he's not a good actor, but I guess it does.
Yeah, that'll be.
And to be honest with you, I thought that Bob Dylan would make a better Billy the Kid because he literally looks like a kid.
Well, he wanted to be in it because he said he feels like a spiritual reincarnation of Billy the Kid.
Makes sense. I mean,
which one does make sense, and two, the film from I believe it was like 2008. I haven't seen it, but I've always wanted to. I'm Not There, the movie, and it's basically just about every like Dylan persona ever. Like Kate Blanchett's in it as like Dylan going through his rock phase, and there's one like where it's like a Woody Guthrie inspired one, but there's also one called of his personas called Billy, where it's set like in the Pat Garrett type time, and which is really cool. Like I said, I always wanted to see that movie just because it's just about all the different personas of Bob Dylan. The man's like one of the greatest workers of all time. He's the truest carny of them all. He's got gimmicks up the ass. He's constantly changing and involving.
Was there a Frank Sinatra one?
Yeah, that's what he's going through now.
No, I know, but I'm at in the film.
No, because that was 10 years ago.
Too new.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think like it makes sense for Bob Dylan, especially to want to be in this film. He had a lot going on with this film. He had to write all the songs for the film. Now, you know more about the film than I do. Who really was the reason why Bob Dylan was writing the songs for the film? Because you said Sam Peckinpah really didn't know who Bob Dylan was at this point.
No, he didn't know who the hell Bob Dylan was. Which is kind of an amazing thing to think of when you think about it, because by 1973, it's already been 10 years into his illustrious music career.
Right.
Being one of the most influential, if he called, at the end of this film, if Bob Dylan called it a day, he's like, I'm not doing music anymore, he would still be a legend for all, like, the works that he's done before then. I believe it was a studio call. Studio wanted him.
Just wanted him to do the soundtrack. And it wasn't really common at that point, right? Bob Dylan hadn't really done soundtracks previous to that.
No,
he was basically just a folk artist at that point.
No. He wasn't just a folk artist.
What?
See, that's where No. No. Now you're being ignorant.
Why? I mean, he was a folk artist. No. He was a rock...
Folk. Did folk. Then he went electric.
Yeah.
Then he went back to more a little folky. Then he did country.
So but yeah.
Now he's still, this is kind of, I would say more on his, country. He played with the band.
Yeah, country. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's not folk art. That's what I'm saying. He'll do, he'll do cocaine a little bit after this. Then he'll find Jesus. Then he'll go back to doing cocaine. Then he'll go back to being acoustic. Then he'll do blues music. And then he'll do what he's doing now, Sinatra stuff. Like, he's constantly evolving.
Yeah, so Dylan actually composed Knocking on Heaven's Door for this film.
Yeah.
Even though it's used, never in its entirety, but it's used probably 5 times throughout this film, right? I would say
3 or 4
in different types of circumstances. Like some of it is just like the tune, like the instrumental version
Well,
of it.
the song itself's not even that long. On the album, it's only 2:20.
I think that
which is amazing too, because I mean, being a huge Dylan fan myself, if you ever hear him sing "Knocking on Heaven's Door," it's never the same lyrics. He's constantly like I'm sure when he originally wrote it and recorded, he probably had like 20 different verses for it, and so that's just like always something interesting I always found. And not only that too, I just find it interesting too. It's one of the most covered songs in like the history of modern day recording music, and it's just this little it's not even one of my favorite Dylan songs, not even close. And it's just like one little 2-minute, 20-minute song that was in a film that not a lot of people saw.
I would say that it works really well in this film, though.
No, I think it's great. I think I love his soundtrack. His soundtrack to this film is absolutely amazing, if you ask me.
Well, while we're getting into soundtrack, we could talk about it a little bit. I posed you a question, Bob Dylan or Ennio Morricone, for a Western soundtrack. And you didn't really answer the question. You just said you loved Bob Dylan's soundtrack in this film.
I would probably say Ennio Morricone because he's a actual film. He actually composes music for film, you know. But I would say what Dylan did here works really well and fits the film perfectly. It's like I said, it's really great. The final theme that's played in this, and you get to hear it in the film at the end when Billy's settling down at Fort Sumner at the one place, and he's getting ready to lie down in bed, and you hear the little pan flute and the 12-string guitar and all that. That's awesome. The final theme's absolutely amazing. It's great. I think if they like ever played that over like a tense like standoff, it'd fit beautifully. But it's absolutely great. I can't praise it enough. The main title theme for the film, Billy, which is just the instrumental one, not the one where he's got the actual lyrics to it. And that's at the opening of the film where, you see it and you hear the nice, maracas playing and, it's great. I can't recommend it enough. It's his most underrated album, if you ask me, by like a mile. It's a gem. And I think his score for this is great. It's absolutely great. Works perfectly for the film. And it was really great.
Well, I'll be on the opposite spectrum of that. Not so much that I don't think that the score is good. I do think that the score is good. I'll admit I'm not a Dylan fan, but I do think that some of the score works really well. Knocking on Heaven's Door, for one, being used throughout the film does add a lot of emotional depth to it. There is that scene that I'm thinking of where Slim Pickens is killed.
Yep.
And it's really kind of random. I mean, within the film itself, that Slim Pickens gets killed, and we don't really, as a character, he's not really important to the film at all.
He's not for yeah, but at the same time, they use Knocking on Heaven's Door, it's mainly just for like a
emotional heft.
Like, because the other time they use it too is when the and I can't remember the man's name, but the one that Garrett first deputizes, in the bar. He runs into Billy at the trading post, and they have a standoff, and which I do find that standoff to be great too, because one, the family from the trading post is watching, like it's high entertainment.
Yeah,
like, I wonder who's gonna win, and I think I just love that like kind of banter between him and Billy, because Billy's like, "Sure you want to do this?" And he's like, "Yes, I think so." And he's like, "Think of anything else to do?" And he's like, "I think this is the only way." He's like, "All right, let's take 10 paces, and it's just great watching him walk out there and count that, and seeing Billy, the bastard that he is, not even he just turns around instantly, waits for him to turn around and shoots him.
Yep.
And they play Knocking on Heaven's Door again, which he's a minor character and not very important to the film at all, but I almost think it's more just kind of, and this may be me reading a little bit more too deep into it. I think it's more about like in those scenes, it's about Billy and Pat when they're playing. It's more like about them marching towards their own death. Not that it's supposed to be played for like the emotional, like, oh, these two people, Slim Pickens died. No one wants to see Slim Pickens die. I don't think it's because of that. I think it's more of the emotional weight of Pat, like, Just
knowing that they're heading into a territory where they can't come back from. Yeah, I get that. I mean, I think it does work that way. I will say that I wish that, as we talk about like Ennio Morricone, he does compose for film. With Bob Dylan's score, sometimes it does seem to be used a little randomly, sporadically.
Well, that has to do with the film's troubled editing process.
Yeah.
Now, say if like Martin Scorsese was like allowed to kind of like, you should do this and do that, I would guarantee it'd be probably like the most perfectly placed, because that man's got the most brilliant touch ever when it comes to like taking like pop music, like, you know, like a Stone song or like a George Harrison song or, you know, or Dylan song or what have you. It like always puts it in his films in the right place. It's like always on point. I think if, you know, he were to like have his like own like involvement, like, yeah, he probably could do it better, but because like I said, like like when the prostitutes come in, like that whole scene's weird, and then they play, you know, Billy. Like, the song's called Billy Surrenders, but it's not on the actual soundtrack of, you know, the la 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 la.
Right. Yeah.
Like that like that's like out of place and weird. But when like we actually do get the scene in the beginning where Pat chases Billy down and gets him to surrender, and they play that, I think that works, you know, really good. It's kind of goofy, but I think it works really well. I think like the Cantina theme. Like, anytime they're in the cantina and you hear, like, you know, the instrumental playing there, it works great, and it works really well, and I think it's really, really good. They also play that, too, though, when Bill and the other deputy gets shot after Billy breaks out, you know, which is kind of, like, I think that kind of doesn't work as well, either, even though it's much like the cantina theme, but when you see Billy breaks out and he's holding the shotgun and, you know, pointing it at him, you know, because it goes from like not playing anything, but then as soon as he goes on the steps, you're like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
That doesn't work as well. Like, so no, I would say Ennio Morricone would be.
I think I prefer a traditional soundtrack as well, but I think that this one works pretty well too. Just like as you said, the editing for this film in general was a nightmare.
6 editors.
Yeah. And none of the films,
which we will preface this too. We probably should have prefaced it in the beginning, because if you do know anything about this film, you know there's several different cuts of it. We watched the special edition, the 115-minute cut, not the theatrical 106 cut or the director's cut, which is 122 minutes.
Yeah, and I think even though there is the director's cut, I think there's still one that was never released that would have been Sam Peckinpah's, like, one that he would have preferred above all.
It's supposed to be that director's the preview cut.
Yeah.
But, who knows? He probably cut it.
There's probably more than that.
And like I was telling you, I watched it. It's been so long since I've seen like the theatrical and that cut. I remember watching the theatrical cut the first time, being kind of underwhelmed with the film, and then watching the preview version, the director's cut, and being like, oh, that's a lot better. It makes a lot more sense. But to be honest with you, that was like 10 years ago, and I can't really remember what the actual differences were. I kind of just blacked the theatrical cut out of my mind, like I never saw it. So, like, if you're looking for like digging into the nitty gritty on that, I unfortunately can't recall.
I'm imagining that the special and director's cuts, they add the more in-depth scenes of like characterization to both Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. So if you cut them out, you got an hour and 45 minute for the regular, you know, standard theatrical cut. You kind of lose a little bit of the morality, because I'm assuming like some of the scenes that might have gotten cut are like the pre-rape scene with Paco in the desert. I'm thinking that might have been one that was cut out just because of the almost like it doesn't really fit within the context of the film itself. Like Paco in general,
it's just
it's kind of like a second, you know,
he's just Billy's like Mexican friend.
Yeah, know, like almost a tertiary character where that scene itself doesn't really even matter, but it does give Billy a sense of like personal morality. You know, even though he doesn't really go by the definition of like what the law says, he does go by his own sense of morality. And so I guess maybe it just adds a little bit more character to him. So I could see that one perhaps being cut from a theatrical film, but, you know, in the actual director's cut style of it. So I do think in that sense, like some of those scenes are necessary because they do add that sort of, you know, because everybody in a Western has sort of a skewed moral element to them. They believe in certain things, they don't believe in other things. You know, the law.
Well, especially if it's like in the vein of a spaghetti western.
Exactly.
If it's more like the John Ford, like John Wayne, like we're gonna get them engines. Don't you know? The morality's pretty, you know, black and white.
And in this film too, this film even brings up sort of the morality of like, what is the law? What does it stand for? Who says what the law means? In this case, a lot of the time it's like politics that the law said, like, you know, certain people who are rich say the law is this thing, but then you have other people who don't really believe that that's the case. And so you have a really skewed sense of like what is really encompassed under the law, especially in what Westerns would be considered unlawful days. So I think it brings up an interesting point of like, you know, what we think of as a moralistic attitude really wasn't the same as what would have been in Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. And so, you know, we can't see these characters as black and white, good or bad. Neither of them are. And I think that is also why we get those scenes where both Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett get their comeuppance. Because, you know, Pat Garrett's not really, I mean, he's on the right side of the law, but he's not really a, like, morally upstanding character either.
No.
So you kind of get the best of both worlds in that sense. I think it works well. And, you know, coming to think about it a little bit more, at an hour and 55 minutes, I don't think that this film is too long. I think it's probably right around where it needs to be. Maybe could cut out like 5 or 10 minutes of film here and there. But other than that, I think it's right around where it needs to be. It definitely doesn't come to like the same length of time, like almost unnecessary, like really drawn out as, you know, a Sergio Leone film. But it does, I think it sits like really well at an hour and 55 minutes at like what it needs to do.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So let's talk about, because we haven't brought it up yet, let's talk about Billy the Kid himself, Kristofferson.
Yeah, let's talk about him.
The oldest Billy the Kid in like the history of ever.
Yeah, he was what, 36 years old when this film was shot? Supposed to be 21 years old as Billy the Kid. So yeah, it is ironic that he's referred to as a kid throughout the film.
Not only that too, Billy the Kid was like 5'7", like 130, and Kristofferson's like all but like 6'3" and like 220.
Yeah.
You know, hulking man with his like burly, you know, tobacco chewing voice. Like,
he is an imposing figure all around, yeah.
It's just, I can't get over that. That's like, I don't think Kristofferson does a bad job. I'm honestly not the biggest fan of his acting, because he's always kind of just,
I think he does the same thing.
Just, yeah, the same thing, kind of wooden too.
Yeah.
I think, one of the scenes that kind of shows like his woodenness at times in the film is, when like, he takes the gun out when he's about ready to break out of jail, and he's, you know, threatening Billy not to leave.
Bell is his name.
Yeah, Bell.
Yeah,
and he's like threatening him. He's like, "Come up here," and he's like, "Oh, you won't shoot me in the back." And he's like, "Come on." Like, you know, that's really, you know, really kind of terribly delivered. I mean, I think he's a mixed bag, because like I said, sometimes too, like when that standoff scene, like where he's, you know, having the banter with the deputy and getting ready to do the pacing out, I think that's well done. I think it's just,
yeah, I think it really depends on his delivery, on the timing of it too, because you're right, like when he delivers that line about, you know, did you figure out anything else, like another method of dealing with this? And Amalusa Bill, I think his name is, or something like that. He says no. Billy says, "Okay, we'll get on with it then." You know, because at that point the fate has been sealed. I think it works well.
I think his delivery kind of like it all depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Like I think when he, you know, when he blows Bell away with the dimes loaded shotgun, which I love that part. That's just so great. When he's just like, "Keep the change."
Yeah.
You know, that works perfectly.
Yeah, because in that sense he's almost emulating like Clint Eastwood too. in some of those like really comical like.
Better make it 3 coffins.
Yeah, better make it like 3 coffins. Yeah, he's emulating that in some sense, and I think it works. I don't think I think it's delivered in a very like nonchalant way, and I think that's how Kristofferson.
It's definitely different from like Emilio Estevez in Young Guns. He's like, you know, like
yeah,
you know, he's like, woohoo, you know.
I think it really depends, like because Kristofferson throughout the film is really like nonchalant about things. He's very, and even like when he's delivering that tense scene that you talked about, where he's telling a story about a guy walking 10 paces and then turn around and shooting another guy. That's delivered in a nonchalant way that happens to work because of the tense way. Like he's just kind of delivering it. He doesn't want any enunciation. He doesn't want like an emotional presence to his story. He wants it to be like very, you know, melancholy and delivered in a way that's like not totally different from, you know, how he would just normally speak. So it works then. But then in other scenes where he does have to be a little bit more emotionally present, that is really where his acting is not at its best. I would say some of the scenes like that involve women, you know, women that he seems to care for, they're forced because it's never really apparent how Billy the Kid feels about anybody else, but really himself, I would say. So like any emotional element to Kris Kristofferson's character doesn't come out that well. But I do think he's good in this role simply because he is an imposing character. He does have the very like deep voice that works for a Billy the Kid character, like an imposing character. Like can you imagine like a Billy the Kid being at 21 and like having like a underdeveloped voice and just being like,
well, that would probably make more sense. That's what
it would make more sense.
So I think Emilio Estevez probably did a better job in Young Guns than like if you're going like by historical, 'cause, you know. But like I said, this is very romanticized, so you know it's like let's just take like this nice strapping hulking man and, you know, he'll be our Billy the Kid. It's like, okay.
I know. One thing that really throws me off about Kris Kristofferson is his eyebrows. He really doesn't have one.
For me, it's his fucking big ass head and his tree trunk neck. Like,
well, I just
want to split it open and see how many rings go.
I'm just comparing the eyebrows because you have James Coburn, whose eyebrows are, you know, kind of bouncing all over the place, and then you have Kris Kristofferson, who on a close up you can't even see his eyebrows. So that's definitely like the, you know, eyebrows versus no eyebrows pitting against each other. That should have been the poster artwork.
There's no middleman. It's all.
One of my favorite scenes in this film actually involves James Coburn getting a shave, which clearly, and a shave and a haircut, which turns out to be a very poor job, because when they come back to him after Giuseppe's done with his haircut, James Coburn's hair is like all over the place, just like splayed out all over. It doesn't look like he actually got a haircut, but at least he did get a complimentary whiskey.
He looks like he got off like a 3-night coke bender, like either with no sleep. His hair is all just like. Not only that, the poor kid, he tells to go tell his wife, and you know the deputy some news. Has that terrible like middle-aged page boy, like Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, yeah.
Cut like,
yeah, I almost expected him to like call him retarded or something, because he stands there for a second, because he gives them some instructions. He's like, go tell this person this, and then go to this house, and the kid stands there for like a good 5 seconds thinking about it. He's like, then he says the name of the person, then he says the name of the place, and runs off. It's just expecting him to say like, well, that little retarded boy is not going to remember what I said. You know?
I think they put that in there to be like more like, because you can imagine like telling something to like, you know, a kid, they have to be like, go to that, like,
yeah,
you know,
I guess,
so,
yeah.
you know, when like if they just ran off, you know, like, oh, that fucker's not gonna do what I asked him to do, because he's not gonna remember. Yeah. He's gonna run outside and see that noose all the other kids are swinging on, and
yeah,
that's a scene I like. The kids like swinging on the noose, and you know, the deputy like giving them the warm side of the door look, like, yeah. We're going to hang Billy.
Pretty soon there's going to be a dead guy there.
I know.
Yeah.
Hopefully he cries for Jesus.
That's funny.
I will say, too, There is a bevy of
like Western
side characters. And they're all very well portrayed, I would say.
Yeah, there's a lot of side characters that are really, well known within the Western world, especially at that time. As we mentioned before, you have like Chill Wills is in here. You had said that you recognized Slim Pickens.
Oh, everyone
quite a bit.
He's very well known.
Yep.
As a
and then you have a lot of a host of unknown Mexican cast members who just are there to show their boobs. That's something that that is kind of actually surprising from Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid, that it has so many exposed breasts.
Well, it's the 70s now, so the violence and the cleavage has been up tenfold. Which this isn't. This is a pretty bloody film.
Yeah,
they use squibs pretty damn liberally in this.
Yeah,
which it's not like Peckinpah did it in The Wild Bunch. That's well known for its finale fight scene where there's a lot of death and carnage and blood.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see, like, because you often see it, especially in the time, even in spaghetti westerns. Like when you see Lee Van Cleef get shot at the end, the good and the bad, the ugly. You don't see like a bullet hole in blood. He just like kind of clinches his side, and falls into the grave.
Right. Yeah. A lot of it was just kind of like a imagined thing. Like you didn't actually see the aftermath. You kind of just saw. You heard the gunshot. You saw the grabbing of the wound, but you didn't really see anything between that. In this case, you do. You get to see the bright Technicolor blood that flies out.
Yeah, it's very hyper realistic.
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead levels, which it's not bad. I appreciate it. I think.
No, I don't mind it. I definitely think that it's like it's something that really comes of the time. Like from this point on, actually, like from the mid 70s to the early 80s, you really got that Technicolor bloody, vibrancy that comes out, especially in Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid.
Well, this isn't Technicolor.
No, it isn't.
It's Metrocolor.
Yeah, it's technically different, but it does have that same
hue.
Yeah. Which I like, actually. Like, I don't mind any film that has that sort of hue to it, because it's nostalgic and I think it works. And even though realistically that's not true to what would have happened, I like that element to it just because it's exaggerated and I think it's fun. It's fun, really. Like in this case, you talked about the shotgun, not the shotgun, but the rifle with the dimes in it.
Yeah, it's a shotgun.
Yeah, it's a shotgun. Yeah,
double barrel shotgun.
That's filled with dimes, and that's like a super comical scene. Like it shouldn't really work. It's a ridiculous scene.
I mean, I think if you haven't really watched older films, you might you might think it's comical. I think it's really good. In fact, I think it's pretty, like, the fact they were actually able to get a slow cap shot.
They were,
and it's not really super slow, but it's a nice slow cap shot watching the dimes fly out. You don't get to see the impact really of the dimes, because then it goes to the deputy, and you see it like from you don't see his front, you just see his back. So because they're not going to be able to show the dimes hitting them, so you see his body get jilted by it, and then but the squibs, and the blood that gets blown out from his back, that's awesome.
It's
a
good, it's a good touch. I like it. It's definitely, this film has something for everybody. If you're looking for nudity, you got some nudity. If you're looking for some violence, you got some violence. Sometimes even more than a spaghetti western would have. And all around,
I would say this is pretty much more violent.
Yeah,
yeah. But then again, like I said, the Wild Bunch that's what it made its bones on is what's well known. I mean, not just because it's also a great western, but also because of how violent it was.
Yeah.
But no, I really appreciate the liberal use of squibs. It's almost like they saw Sonny getting shot in The Godfather, and some studio exec's like, God damn it, we gotta have more. That's
increase the violence in this film. Yeah. All right, do you want to rate Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid?
Sure.
On a scale of 1 to 10 coffee ground filled coffee mugs, what would you give Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid?
I'll give it an 8.5.
All right. Yeah.
I really like this movie a lot. It's probably one of the reasons why we're doing it. It's an actual suggestion from me. I think James Coburn is really good. I like James Coburn. I've always been a pretty big fan of him. I think he does a really good job as Pat Garrett. He's very just cold, calculating, and I appreciate his how methodical he is and how he portrays the role. And we don't get to, we get to see it, how calculating he is. The film doesn't waste time expositing. Nothing in this film is exposited to you except a little bit of the friendship between Pat and Billy. The rest of it's all just great visual storytelling from the shots and how the actors interact with one another and the story, how it plays out. I think it's really good. I think the Kristofferson's kind of miscast, but I think he does do a pretty decent, an okay job. But I think Bob Dylan as an actor in this film is totally pointless and great for some brevity, unintentional brevity. I think the ensemble cast is terrific. It's a who's who of Western, elites. Setting's beautiful, gorgeous.
Yeah.
The violence is great. It's a simple, easy story. I love the soundtrack. Like I said, I think Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid is Bob Dylan's most underrated album, and that's coming from a huge Dylan fan.
Yeah.
So I would probably give it 8.5. It's one of my favorite westerns of all time.
I would give it probably an 8. I thought it was a really enjoyable film experience. Definitely a good western. Slightly different from what you would consider like a spaghetti western of the time. You definitely can see some of the differences, not just between like how it was shot and everything and the locales, but also just like the way that they approach the storyline. Like you said, this is a very simple storyline. It's not a sprawling plot. It literally for almost the entire film is just a chase scene between Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett and how they come together. However, I do like how it splits off between the two of them to kind of show their characters within their own separate realms. So you have Pat Garrett within his like sheriff's realm, and then you have Billy the Kid within his outlaw realm, and how they kind of work together to come together, and how that theme really fits in with the film. I think that I would say that the film is at an hour and 55 minutes with what we watch as a special edition cut of this film. It works pretty well. I think it's, I don't know that I would cut a lot from this. There are a couple scenes, as you mentioned, like Alias as a character, which doesn't really fit within the plot itself, but I guess it makes sense within the context of just having more characters in there that are close to Billy the Kid. But I wouldn't really cut anything out from this film. I think the soundtrack is good from Bob Dylan. I still prefer Ennio Morricone. That's just my own, opinion. Take it for what it's worth. But I do think that it's a good soundtrack. Knockin' on Heaven's Door is used pretty well within this film. In different occasions with different parts of the soundtrack, the song itself. So it works really well. And I think that for the most part, like, this is a good mix of violence, somewhat humorous kind of distraction from the seriousness of the plot, and then towards the end of the film, during the conclusion, a really enjoyable sort of emotional moment where the two come together and they kind of have their climax, even though it's what I would consider sort of an anticlimax. Like, it's not really climactic in the sense that you're thinking of.
Well, it has one of those traditional old school film endings.
Yeah.
Film just ends.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. There's no super serious face off or things like that, but it's a very hefty climax, one that really like weighs on you as it happens. So I think that's probably one of the film's most important contributions, is that ending really fits within the film's theme well, and it comes to a satisfying conclusion. Maybe not one that, has like an action-packed finale, but a satisfying one.
I still think, like, as we said earlier, if they took the prologue and put it at the end,
that would have been the best
instead of
cut.
making it a flashback, and then it would make sense. Like you can just have the film end with like it looking over Garrett's dead body.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Me too.
All right, so what are we doing next week? Or not next week, but the next episode in 2 weeks.
Well, not Infinity War, because
that's the next, probably the next one. I don't know. I don't have a film picked out yet. Do you have a style that you'd like to do? A genre?
No thanks.
I'll leave it up. I'll pick 2 genres. And,
okay. All right.
Have you decide.
Okay.
Do you want me to say it right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Blaxploitation?
Okay.
Or a Giallo?
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll do you one better and combine the two. No.
That a thing?
Not really.
I was saying, I don't think the Italians are well known for casting black actors.
No, yeah, not really, but yeah. So,
or a Saxony film.
Oh, a Saxon. Yeah. We could do that. I have something for that. So, all right. So we'll leave it at that for now. We haven't picked a film, but we'll come back. Thank you for listening.
We'll do the Twitter poll again.
That's true. Yeah, we could do a Twitter poll. Thanks for listening to our Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid episode. I know that's not one that's like people are like raving about, like want to hear about, but it is definitely a cult film, a cult classic. And
we do want to do the films that not everyone has seen.
Yeah, that
has an opinion. There's no point in us being like, let's do the good and the bad and the ugly,
right?
Or what? As much as I would love for us to do Once Upon a Time in the West, it's almost like, well, what else can you say?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, we like to do the ones that haven't been talked about,
as much
as some of the other movies have. So
hence our first episode being Man, Pride, and Vengeance.
That's right. That's right. All right. So thanks for listening. We are on Podbean, iTunes, and any other podcasting app that you listen to. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on there and leave us a nice review. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We also have a Twitter account at Blood and Black Rum. You can always find us on our main page at cultsploitation.com. And as always, you can email us at bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know what you want to hear on the episode, any movies that you want us to cover, and we certainly will take that into consideration. Thank you for listening. We'll see you back in 2 weeks for our next episode.
Take care.
Bye.